Okay, let's get started. Thanks very much for coming out. I'm Ron Stratton. I'm the current chairman of your POA board. And I wonder, to start, I wonder how many of you, by show of hands, made it to one of our two presentations from the Valley Task Force. The most did. Any of you that didn't make it, have you looked at it at the website, the data there? So most people here are pretty familiar with what we've had so far. And you know that that the previous one was more focused on the Valley Task Force and the work they did over the past year and bringing that information to the board and to all of us as property owners. Now things start to shift a little bit to the responsibilities and obligations of your board of directors in best representing the needs of interests of the owners of our 38,000 properties that we have in Bella Vista. And I think most of us are here. John is right here. Okay, Patrick. Okay, we got David. Is our other David here? Yeah. Oh, there he is, right over here. Okay, Jim, Bruce, Ruth. So I think who is not here? I guess Joshua's away on business, so he can't be here. You know, I think probably most of us would agree that the best way to tackle a big, complex problem would be to have the mental capacity of Mr. Spock on Star Trek. You know, just to be purely analytical, to be able to separate your emotion completely from the problem, to not have any bias one way or the other, to not form any conclusions or opinions before you see all the information and all the data, not to have a bias one way or the other that makes you want to listen to some information and not other information. I don't know about you, but for me, I find that really hard to do on a problem like this because I'm too emotionally connected to it. As we all are, we wouldn't be here. So I don't know how many hours I've spent, and all of us here on the board have spent, trying to understand and tackle this problem, looking at all of the issues, the quantitative things, the qualitative things, the various options, the pros, the cons, the conflicts with this whole thing. I finally put it together in a kind of a matrix, trying to put all of those things on one page. That was at the recommendation of J.B. Portillo here. Thank you very much, J.B. That was helpful. The problem is now you just keep adding to that, and the words get smaller and smaller in the whole complex thing. And the more I study it and go through it and try to search and search as hard as I can for a clear, easy, straightforward answer, I can't find one. Certainly not one that's going to make the owners of 38,000 properties all happy. So I get frustrated, and I get up and I have to vent, usually to Missy, who's sitting right here because she's the one who happens to be there. Or to anybody who might have the unfortunate timing of happening to be there at the time. So, but still, I think we have to be committed to take it one step at a time and find the best solutions for us. So for today, I'm going to ask you just three things, but for today to keep in mind that no decisions have been made, and you'll see why, because it is so complex, and we've had quite spirited discussions already. No decisions are going to be made today, for sure. So we have some time. And in the coming weeks, we'll have plenty of time to hear from anybody who cares to make a suggestion or express an opinion, have a recommendation, advice on what to do for all of us in our best interests. So there's time to do that. So I'm going to ask three things of you. The first is try to be like Mr. Spock for the next hour. Try to maybe even sit back and pretend like you don't have a dog in this fight at all. Pretend like you're just visiting or you're at another place and you're sitting and you're dispassionate about it. You're simply going to listen to this challenge that these people have in this place, think about it objectively, and then think about what you would recommend if they ask you afterwards. The second thing I'm going to ask is that you think in big picture for today. There will be time for lots and lots of detail, but big picture not only for the vision of Bella Vista, what we are going to be, how we're going to solve this problem in the very big picture way, but also the big picture financially. And we'll be showing 4 basic options, and I know there are lots of things in those options that you can get into all kinds of weeds and all kinds of rabbit holes. But think in terms of the big option. Think in terms of millions. I know we've had discussions. It's easy to get into a discussion. Can we save $7,000 here or even $100,000 here or there? All very critical, but at this point I think can be almost more distracting than constructive in thinking in very, very big picture as we move forward. The last thing I'll ask is to try not to read too much into anything that we talk about and we present. As we've worked so hard, and all of us on the board trying to put together all this information that we're going to show you today and other information and thinking about basic ways we might do it, and talked about how to communicate that to you, I would hear sometimes things like, well, you can't say that because people will automatically assume blah, blah, or you can't use this word because then they'll think this. I don't know how to do this and walk on eggshells. I'm going to try to just, along with Tom, we're going to go back and forth and try to just express to you. And for today, I hope if we can do just one thing, and that is try to get all of us up to the same basic level of knowledge of the facts as we understand them. And then we can go on into more detail and hear from people. And at that point then, if you need to vent, you can vent to me. I've certainly dealt out enough of it, and I can take it as well. So you can vent here, or you can make all the comments that you want to make. I'll stay all night if we want to, if you need to. You can vent to me, or send constructive thoughts, whatever you want, by email as well. My email address is on the POA website, and Tom has set up a separate email address for all things related to the Valley here that you can send. You can, when you see me at the golf course, when you see me at the BV Bar and Grill, or at Lake Point, or at Walmart, or all my usual haunts, you can grab me and vent to me there. That's okay. But clearly you'll see we have a very large, complex problem with no really simple, straightforward, easy answers, as much as we'd like to find them. But I also believe with every challenge there are opportunities, ultimately, and I do have confidence we will get there one way or another. Okay, standard stuff, hold your question. Also keep in mind, all of this is going to be on the POA website, as well as being videotaped, so if for people who can't come, or if you want to see something again, you can go back and watch it. Yeah, the board, whatever you want to do. If you want to sit out front, that's fine, and then come back up for questions or something, because it's always awkward sitting up here looking at everybody, and then you can't see the screen, so let's do that. I know some of this might be a little bit hard to see for you, so I'll read some things, and then we'll also will be available on the website. But just a few commitments to start out as we start approaching this from the very highest level and working our way down. The board's continued vision is to maintain the beauty and enjoyment of our front yard, which is the Little Sugar Creek Valley. We all know that that's what people see when they drive by our front yard, and it's beautiful. And our commitment is to maintain it that way. The board's continued mission is to provide attractive recreational amenities, including golf, for the use and enjoyment of our membership. And it is the board's responsibility, and I would say obligation, to find the most economically feasible and practical strategies to accomplish those things. I will tell you that we have had the country club as a priority as we've begun to look at this. And some flood mitigation efforts for that. It's our flagship facility. And it is more practical and feasible compared with Kingswood and Berksdale. Berksdale obviously gets just the initial onslaught and tends to get the worst of it of the floods. And substantial investments have already been made at Country Club. The new pump station, irrigation upgrades, particularly raising all the controllers, although we've done some of that also at Kingswood and Berksdale. New green, the new number 17, the new bunkers, the Billy bunkers, which have proven to be quite good and water resistant with rising waters compared to our old bunkers. And the low water crossing that's currently underway between the new number 10 and number 11, the old number 1 and 2. We actually put a new bridge there too in 2011 And I don't think we included that in the financial figures later, so we have made an investment there as well. Quick recap, I think this is for you, Tom. Tom's going to go through some recaps, and then I'll come back and talk about the things that are more board obligation.
Good afternoon, everybody. Very good, very good. All right. We're going to do a quick recap because we want to make sure that everybody is aware of some of the more important things that were covered at the last meeting, and it's been about a month since the last meeting. So let's go over it just real quick. So quick recap. Over the last 10 years, Bella Vista has experienced flooding in 2008, 11, 13, 15, and 17. I didn't include any of the events this year. They're just rain events. Unfortunately, the rain is so, it's getting us to the point where what we occurred in February and then last month is really a nothing event. What I've done is also I've notated the slide that it appears on the last presentation. That way, if you want to reference it and kind of check on what I've put together, you're welcome to do so. Second of all, the cleanup and repairs from these floods have cost the POA $2.1 million. Over the last couple of weeks, I've received about 30 emails from property owners. I've responded to all of them, or at least I think I have. I hope I have. And one of the property owners pointed out that I should narrow it down just to the flood damage on the valley golf courses. And so you'll see that the country club over this 10-year period has sustained, we've put in $793,000. Ron just referenced the pump station, the irrigation upgrades, the new greens. We put a little bit more into that property. $312,000 at Kingswood and $238,000 at BERKSDALE. And if you add those up, it should come out to the $1,343,000. Yeah, so I just got the question. That is since 2008. So all those floods listed, it came to 1.3, and that's the breakdown of the $1.3 million. A lot of the questions that I got wanted more data, wanted to dive a little bit deeper on the data that we had. And so some of these slides you'll see that I'm giving you a little bit more information. Okay, the other thing is we determined that there would be, based upon the hydrologist report, $3.7, almost $3.8 million, and that would be the stream bank upgrades and the 5 flat bridges. So the 5 flat bridges, replacing those would be $2 million. The majority of that would be for BERKSDALE with 4 bridges. Also 1 bridge at Kingswood. Now, I received a couple different emails about could we eliminate this bridge or that bridge? Could we potentially save some money by adjusting the engineering? I think that's possible. Remember that the hydrologist is going to give us an estimate, and if we were to do the work, then we would have to get 3 bids. We would get much more specific. We may be able to save some money. I don't think we're going to be able to save a tremendous amount, but we would do that. Okay? But Ron emphasized earlier, when you're talking about millions and millions of dollars, if you're able to save a couple $100,000, you do everything you can to save that couple $100,000, but it doesn't necessarily change the decision. All right. Stream bank stabilization, you'll see the LPSTP and the Gabion walls, that's $1.7 million, and I've broken that out by golf course. I didn't have that included in the last presentation. So you see it's $663,000 at BERKSDALE, $560,000 at Kingswood, and $502,000 at the Country Club. Now, the bottom one I think is important, and this was covered in the last meeting, that even if we said go today, going through the permitting, getting all the engineering studies that we'd have to have done, all the permitting and everything that would have to be done, construction, you're still looking at 18 to 24 months So that is a long time frame. I just want to make sure everybody is aware of that time frame. Okay, a couple other things. The findings of the hydrology study determined there is no way to prevent Little Sugar Creek from flooding. It's going to do what it's going to do. There's nothing we can do to stop it. And we went through in great detail. We talked at the last meeting, we talked about using the lake, the recreational lakes. We talked about dredging and all those things. That's not going to make a difference. The creek is going to flood. The other thing that we know is as land in the watershed upstream continues to get urbanized, the frequency and intensity of the flooding will increase. It's going to get worse. Why does Berksdale sustain the most amount of damage? Because it's the first one that gets hit, and the creek bends the most in that particular area. That's where it takes the first big turn. Lastly, we looked at the 10-year flooding diagram, and we looked at all the greens, and it would be 36 out of 54 greens would have to be raised. Chances are the government, in one way or another, would not allow us to do all that work. Plus, it would change the characteristics of the golf course. You'd have all these raised greens. You'd be flying the ball into all these raised greens. It would change the character of a lot of them. So you can't just go in and say, okay, well, let's, if it's 10 feet to get above the flood, the 10-year flood line, well, let's raise them all 10 feet. Well, you can't bump and run up that. It also changes the greens complexes, the approaches. It changes the entire character of the golf course. So recognize that. All right. Board members, I added this slide about 20 minutes ago. I want to make sure that everybody is aware of the information that is available online. We've indicated the website, but I don't think enough people have gone there. We actually have analytics on our website where we can actually see the number of people that click on everything. It's a little creepy. But you'll see on the left-hand side, last month's video presentation is available. We'll post this presentation also. If you want to go back and view it again, you're welcome to do so. We have last month's PowerPoint presentation. We'll have this PowerPoint presentation available. You'll see the executive summary of the flood study is available. The entire flood study, the damage study, the report of the damage study alone, and down here is the floodplain report. This is the detail. This is 498 pages worth of detail. Easy reading. Oops, wrong button. Here are the next meetings, or the meetings that have taken place in our meeting. And here are all the minutes for all the different meetings that have taken place. So we're really trying to give you as much information as possible, but I can't force you to read it. Okay, so I encourage you to do so. Unfortunately, the analytics are telling me that not many people are clicking on these. Okay? All right. I wanted to go over some financial information real quick about golf courses and a couple other things. This came up in a lot of the emails that I received over the last month. We're talking about the financials and what they meant and how they interacted with this. And Ron was talking about taking a very logical approach. And so these are the numbers. Don't read anything into it. I have not slanted the numbers in any way. Most of the numbers are available on our website. You're welcome to go find them. Some of them are not available on the website, and I'll tell you when they're not available. Okay? All right. Here is revenue. Okay. On the right-hand side, wrong button. On the right-hand side, that is assessment revenue in blue. Down here in green, I selected that color on purpose. That's golf. Here's food and beverage. Here's recreation I put lakes into recreation. You can debate that. Lot sales and lot and transfer fees, and then all other. So you see that golf makes up quite a bit. You know, we almost have a half line right there. It's almost halfway, and maybe a quarter of the pie is made up of golf. Okay? Makes sense? This information, so this is the 18 budget, and all the information that is on there is available on our website. So if you want to go check on my numbers, you're welcome to do so. All right, revenue is one thing, but what do you bring down to the bottom line? Here's the net income. Okay? So, this is net income before depreciation. Why don't I include depreciation? It's a non-cash item. Okay? This is the 2018 budget. So, golf loses about a little over $2 million a year. Once you factor in the pro shop, golf course maintenance, and everything, that includes the revenue, but it also includes expenses. See that food and beverage will lose about $300,000. Lakes, I can't remember the number, one and a half. I included MAC here because it's such a large number. So maintenance and construction, that's the maintaining of the buildings, fixing things, landscape, so forth. It's not a recreational department, but it's such a large dollar amount, I felt that I needed to call it out. And I called out marketing. And then I kind of took all the rest, which is the revenue from amenities, from the assessments, and put in an administration and so forth, and just kind of put the rest in there. So if you recall, that slide said 8.3, and this slide says a little over 6, okay? So we've chewed into that number. You could debate what I included in those numbers, meaning how I divided it out into these different categories. I could have gone really wide and just kept on going and going and going, but I just lumped them together. If you want to throw stones, no problem. Here's the interesting point. If you add all of these negatives together with this positive, they come to basically 0. Okay? So we effectively subsidize all of our amenities. Okay? So we subsidize the lakes, we subsidize the golf courses, we subsidize the restaurants for now. Eventually they're going to pay for themselves and they're going to generate revenue. But right now we're subsidizing them. So everything we have, everything that we offer, that's where your $24 or $16 goes to. Okay? But people have come up to me and said, wow, golf's the biggest moneymaker. Yeah, unfortunately, it's not. But if I just showed you golf as a negative and I didn't show you everything else, well, that wouldn't paint the correct picture. That would be slanted. I wanted to show you the whole thing. All right. Net loss. So we talked just a moment ago about the net loss in golf. And so these numbers, now let me back up. These numbers this is all available online. This information is not available online. And there is a reason. Some of this information is available. From about 13 on, this information is available, but it is available in just a challenging way. From 13 prior to, they did some interesting stuff with the numbers. I don't agree with it. What they did was they took some assessments and they allocated it to the golf department to make it look artificially good. Assessments should be on their own. You shouldn't allocate it. You should allocate it when you're all at the end. So all these numbers had to be adjusted. Okay? They're true numbers, and I'm willing to sit down with you and go over it with it, but those are the true numbers. Okay? We've eliminated depreciation. We've eliminated assessments. This is how we did. So you see, we kind of went up and down, but last several years we've been pretty steady in the $2.2 million range. Okay? And that is consistent with what the budget was in last slide. This slide shows about 2.3, and then here's your prior. So where did I come up with the 2.3? Well, 2.3 and 2.2 is pretty much in the same neighborhood. So on average, if you divide it out between the number of golf courses that we have, the POA uses assessments and subsidize the golf to about $367,000 per course. Well, it's different for Berksdale than Scottsdale. Yeah, not really. They're pretty consistent throughout. All right. So someone came up and said, we don't spend any capital on golf. And I said, really? Have you played in the bunkers? Have you been on the cart paths recently? Have you been to Scottsdale? So, since 2012, we've spent $4.2 million on golf, and I lumped everything else into the other. You got Lake Point in there. You got a little bit of, since this is the end of the year, you got a little bit of the country club in there. You got a bunch of different stuff in there. I just wanted to, what's the point? We've spent a lot of money on golf. All right, let's take a look at rounds played. So unfortunately, this slide is relatively consistent with what is going on in the overall golf business. You see that rounds have progressively slid down. Now, when I first put all this information together, the first thing I saw that little peak right there, and I said, oh, these numbers got to be wrong. No way. There's no way you can have that much of a peak in 1 month, in 1 year. Well, it's actually correct because 2011, remember that slide from earlier, talked about the years that we had the floods? We had a big flood in 11, we had a real big one in 13, and we had just the perfect, no floods, mild winter, beautiful golf course, no construction going on right in between. So if you eliminated that variability, this line would go kind of that and then start kind of tapering off. And if you look at what happened with the economy in this time frame, around 9 and 10, it's pretty consistent. And this is fairly consistent with what is going on in the overall golf business. Okay? You got enough lines? Okay. So, a lot of lines. So, what I wanted to do is I wanted to show you what was going on. All right, so here are each of the golf courses. I'm sorry, we're going to back up. I can tell you with absolute certainty that 2017 numbers are 100% accurate. Those are the only numbers that I'm willing to stand 100% behind. Okay? We've done a lot of improvements since I've been here. Accuracy of data to be able to make wise decisions off of good data is critically important. I'm only willing to stand behind the 1 year, but so you could maybe argue that some of these numbers are off, plus or minus $5,000 or $10,000, but the story does not change. All right, so I broke it out, and this is a lot of data, and it might be easier to view it in the comfort of your own home. But what you'll see is, so the blue line, that's a really visible line. That's Highlands, and it goes along pretty steady, and then it dropped in 17 because we closed it for a couple months for construction. And you'll see Scottsdale, that kind of light greenish, kind of goes up and down, goes way down when we closed it for the renovation, and goes way up. And you'll notice that that number is higher than that number. It's because our rounds are up about 10%. We renovated the golf course. We're doing pretty good. And here is Kingswood and Berksdale. Well, why didn't I break out Kingswood and Berksdale? Because they combined all the numbers. They didn't separate anything out. I can't get it separated. I can separate it as of 17. I can separate it out. All prior years, it was all muddled together. So here's the flood. Here's the 9 holes. So clearly, the last year, it dips down pretty sharply. If we didn't have the flood, it probably would have gone, I don't know, not nearly as sharply down. But clearly, you can see that the pattern is the same. The story doesn't change. I give you more and more detail. but the story doesn't change. Okay, so we sat down with the golf team and challenged them. What can we do? How can we improve the number of rounds? What efforts can we do to improve the situation? So these are the actuals. Well, 17 was actual, but these are the rounds. And then here is what we're projecting through enhanced facilities. We've done a lot of work. We talked about the capital improvements that we've made, effective marketing efforts, player development, growth of guest rounds. Okay, so you'll see that we anticipate that it's going to go up quite a bit, but it's not a earth-shattering amount. We're not looking for an increase of 20 or 30,000 rounds. You know, this is pretty modest. And what did I base this on? I based this on status quo. So I was like, okay, do I do the forecast off of Berksdale being 18 or 9 holes? And I said, okay, well, right now it's 9 holes, so I'm going to go off a status quo. So you can shoot me, you can debate with that number. It should be higher if it was 18-hole golf course. I just went status quo, all right? All right, here's the other thing. Our only 36-hole facility, and we make so much money on the 36-hole tournaments. Unfortunately, that's not the case. In 17, we had 5 36-hole events. 3 out of the 5 were for charities, and they were priced aggressively. We did well, but they were priced aggressively. We haven't lost any of those tournaments. One of the tournaments is now doing Highland Scottsdale. Another one's doing Kingswood Country Club, so forth. We haven't lost any of them. Would they prefer to be all at one location? Absolutely. Okay. But have we lost any of them? No. Then the last question is, where else are they going to go? The answer is nowhere. Big picture questions. That's it for me. Back to Ron.
Thank you. Okay, as we think about the big picture questions that we'll try to start from the highest level and move down, and always keep in mind what Tom showed you. So what's the obligation of the board and management? We have a certain amount of money that comes in every year from assessments that we can pretty much count on. Around $8 million a year comes in. Then we make decisions about how to distribute that money to all of our amenities. So each one of them then breaks even between whatever fees are charged and then whatever we take out of that $8 million and put it to each of these amenities. A little over $2 million for golf, a little over $1 million for recreation and lakes, et cetera. So the big picture questions as we go through this. Is it economically and practically feasible to maintain the country club as a golf course? Is it economically and practically feasible to maintain Kingswood as a golf course? Is it economically and practically feasible to maintain Berksdale as a golf course? And for each of the above, if yes, how much will it cost and how do we pay for it? And if not, what is the most attractive and feasible alternative use of the land? How many golf courses should we have? So we're going to address all of these questions. And how will these decisions impact the long-term success and image and value of Bella Vista? One thing that's important, we realize when I talk to people, this reversionary clause, and people have the idea, and if they come up to me and say, well, if this is not a golf course, then the land automatically goes back to Cooper. That's not true. We think that some of that may come from many of the churches in the POA do have a reversionary clause. That is, Cooper gave land for churches. As long as it's a church, you can have the land. If it goes to something that's not a church, it goes back to Cooper. That's not the case with our recreational land. So, in other words, we control the land and we can repurpose it, provided the land is used for recreation. Now, Cooper does hold a deed restriction on the land which could require approval or partnership with Cooper if the land was to be used for commercial purposes. So some economic realities. Let's start with the country club, and I made a comment earlier that this has been a priority for us and for the reasons I stated, but you can see the investments we put in, about $600,000, and that actually doesn't include, in 2011 we put in that new bridge between the new number 10 and 11, old number 1 and 2. Remaining work that still needs to be done. Well, I can tell you there's no way to completely flood-proof country club or any of our golf courses. Even though country club gets the least of it, Berksdale gets an awful lot, there's going to be some flooding that's going to come. So the question is, how could we make that be reasonably sustainable? Well, if we put $500,000 into stream bank stabilization there, as recommended by the hydrologists, if we raise some select greens, there are 6 that are below a floodplain that a big flood could get. That's about $750,000. You'll remember the new number 2, the par 3, old number 11 was completely underwater in 2013. So another $1.25 million to somewhat shore up country club that we believe it could be reasonably be an ongoing golf course. Part of the things to keep in mind too, when you are, and I've learned a lot about things that I didn't know anything about, and maybe somebody needs to speak up for the things I get wrong, but in any time you're moving dirt to raise a green or move any dirt anywhere in these flood areas, permitting is required, and there's a limited amount that you can do. Even if we did have the many millions and millions of dollars to move up all the greens on all 3 golf courses, it would never be allowed by permitting. You don't just raise them up like a volcano. You have to move a lot of dirt to gradually go up, and it completely changes the whole nature of the valley and the flow of the water, and it simply wouldn't be required. So we also are looking at, from a practical perspective, if we are going to do these sorts of things, where would make the most sense to do it? So that's it for country club, that we think if we could come up with $1.25–1.5 million or so to get it in reasonably good shape. All right, this is very busy, and I want to take you through it, though, because we've done it different for Kingswood and Berksdale, and then both of those combined. And this information is on the website, so you can go back and study it yourself. But just for the very high level, and keeping in mind that the board has to think about, okay, we have $8 million a year that we can use for our amenities, and where do we put that? So if you look, we've chosen a 10-year period on this. You can choose any period you want, and we can do it any way you want. 10-year. For one thing, it's we know that a flood that's what is about a 10-year event is going to be relatively devastating to us. We also think that 10 years is the minimal amount of time a board should be thinking about for into the future, and a big future, just not this year and next year, but 10 years, where is our money going to be going? Another thing, it's kind of interesting to think about it. It seems like yesterday to me, but it has been 10 years since that 08 flood that really got our attention for the first time. And we've put quite a lot of money into this since then. So if we were looking just at Berksdale, what is the very high-level expense reality we'd be looking at? First of all, you can see this assessment supplement. And none of this has an inflation factor, which is already very high level, because clearly that's not going to happen. The price of things go up, so things are going to go up over 10 years. But if we just continue as we are doing for our 2018 budget, we would be putting in every year $367,000 would come out of assessment income from our $24 and $16 a month and go into the Berksdale Golf Course. So about $3.7 million over that 10 years. Now bridges, and I know we can do, these are the 4 bridges required. We put them in those years. You could put them anywhere because we're not, we're just getting to totals. And I know there are arguments to say, well, maybe you could get by without one or wait for another, but it's somehow in this, it's shown that these bridges would have to be put in at $1.6 million. Stream banks for this golf course alone is $663. We put in just 500 as basic capital projects, and keeping in mind this is just the sort of the basic stuff to keep the golf course relatively okay. The greens are old, the bunkers are old. We haven't had the replacements and the upgrades that we've done to some of our other golf courses. Cart paths get damaged in flood. So we think this is sort of a minimal amount over 10 years, $500,000 in basic capital to keep it as a golf course if we're lucky. So that's about $6.5 million of basically loss out of from this golf course that would be supplemented or will come out of our assessments over the next 10 years. Then the big one, flood cleanup, repair, and loss. And we just have question marks. And I'm going to address this a little bit more as to what this might be, but the fact is we don't know. It's by their nature, the floods are unpredictable, although from what we've heard, they are likely to come. So what would that cost be? It's unpredictable and unknown. Kingswood, the same thing, the $367 a year coming out of assessments, only one bridge, $560 for stream banks, another basic $500 for basic capital, the same kind of approach, a little bit less, fewer bridges, so it's a little over $5 million. The same question. What's going to happen over the next 10 years with the next floods? If you combine these, Kingswood and Berksdale, you basically come up with almost $12 million to try to just basically keep these courses open over the next 10 years with this $12 million coming out of assessments. Okay, what's the probability of we've had spirited discussions about this. Is it going to flood again? Is it going to be really damaging? What's going to happen? First, you know, I said this when we had the hydrology reports. We all thought when these floods came, well, this was a 100-year event. And then the next year, we had 2 more 100-year events. And then 2 years later, we had another 100-year. We said, this can't be right. This is not what's going on. And we found out, yeah, now these were not 100-year events at all. The 1 in 13 that was the biggest one was probably a 10-year event, but we're still working on that. But okay, so there's a couple of ways to look at this. The pure quantitative and then more a qualitative common sense. I mean, as a pure quantitative, if it's a 10-year event, so what's the chance we have a 10-year event that's pretty devastating to a golf course? Well, it's 10% a year. So you can use something called the cumulative binomial probability calculator. It's cumulative because it's over 10 years. It's binomial because it's one or the other. You either have that event that's a 10% chance in that year or you don't. And probability. So over a 10-year period, what that says is there's a 35% chance that it won't happen. We wouldn't have a major flood over 10 years. There's a 65% chance of one or more of those major events, and with a 26% chance there would be more than one in that 10 years. Common sense, as we mentioned before, when those golf courses were built in the floodplain, the population of Bella Vista, Bentonville, and Centerton was 7,000 people. It's now 87,000 people. That many more driveways, rooftops, parking lots, et cetera, and you ask yourself, with the rate of growth we're having right now, what's the population going to be 10 years from now? Most likely it will increase. What does it cost us? I mean, it is just a fact that with flooding, there's very little that could be more damaged than a golf course. When you see the kind of turf management you do, expensive ways of doing sprinkler systems, cart paths, bunkers, greens, all this sensitive kind of thing, a golf course simply sustains much more devastatingly costly damage than do other potential uses of any land. So economic summary, since the flood of '08, in this past 10 years, our operating cost or net loss or money that comes from assessments into the golf courses has been about $736,000 a year, so $7.5 million or so we've put into, over the last 10 years, we've put into those 2 golf courses, $7.5 million. If we'd have known everything that we know now, maybe that was a mistake. Maybe we should have been more prescient and seen and made other decisions before that $7.5 million was gone. But that $7.5 million has been spent. You could argue it should have been something else. Under the best case scenario, that cost is going to increase over the next 10 years because we got to do bridge replacements, we got to do string bank stabilization, course modifications, whatever, if we're going to try to keep them as golf courses. And under the worst case scenario, and that is a major flood event, I don't know, I can't make a guess of how much of our investment in that, both past and future, could be washed away to Missouri. So what are the options? And again, we've broken this down into 4 major options. And we know there are lots of areas you could go into in detail among all these 4 major options. But we want to start within those and I think all of the options that we could possibly do fall into one of these 4 categories. Again, no decisions have been made, and the way we state these kind of things, don't read or infer anything to it. I'm just going to try to communicate the basic high-level facts of these 4 options, and then people can give their input in the weeks to come. Option number 1 would be to simply maintain Kingswood and Berksdale both as 18-hole golf courses, do the work that's recommended to get the other 9 holes at Berksdale opened up, and continue as is with both golf courses over the next 10 years. What are the main issues on that? We'd be spending $11.6 million over the next 10 years and hope for no major flood. Of course, already a very major issue. How do we pay for it? Higher golf fees, an assessment increase, I don't know, but clearly this is above our current planning right now and would take quite a bit more out of that $8 million that we currently get for assessments each year. And so what has to be a trade-off? Where do you find that money, or do you take it from something else, or what do you do? And what's the reality? The reality is there's a statistical likelihood of a 10-year flood during that period of time, washing away an awful lot of that. Okay, let's go to the other extreme. And that is, so that's option 2, that you close both Kingswood and Berksdale as golf courses. Well, what would that mean? It would free $11.6 million over the next 10 years from building them completely back up, about $8 million over what we would have if you don't count putting in all the stream bank stuff and everything. So what could you do with that money? Well, you could direct it to flood mitigation efforts to sustain the country club. I already pointed out we're going to need, and some of it pretty quickly, $1.5 million into country club. You could repurpose Kingswood and Berksdale. That's what that means. The current costs are unknown and undefined, and I'm going to show you some potential options and thoughts and general thinking we've had on there. Clearly, whatever else you do is a lot less expensive than a golf course, but it also has to be something. It is spectacular right now, and it needs to stay spectacular in some way or another. Enhance the remaining golf courses. I mean, the problem is if we did this, it takes us from 6 golf courses to 4. Now, we do have the ARCMO land, and I'm going to have a slide on that in a minute to talk about that. That could bring us to 5 golf courses. Again, don't read anything in anything. I'm laying out just the options that are before us. And pursue potential partnerships for the valley. About 22 of the 200 acres currently occupied by Kingswood and Berksdale are above the 100-year floodplain and are possible for development. It's not a lot, but it's some. We know what could be potential partners. We know that, and we work a lot with the city and with the Walton Family Foundation with the Razorback Greenway, and you know what they've been doing with that and all the trails. We know, and we've had open discussions for years about how they would love to be able to bring the Razorback Greenway, which starts all the way down in Fayetteville and works up to Lake Bella Vista now, through Lake Bella Vista area and through our valley, but we have golf courses there, and golf courses and bikers don't work very well together. So that's not been a reasonable possibility. But we do know that that's somebody we could talk to, or other potential partners if we were to be again thinking about repurposing some of this land. And I have a couple of slides I'll show you in a minute. Okay, let's go back to 2 that are kind of in between. So we've got the 2 extremes. Keep them both open, close them both. In between. So option 3, Berksdale is a 9-hole golf course and Kingswood is an 18, which is what we're doing right now. So a 27-hole facility. So the savings compared to a 36-hole facility over the 10-year period is in the $2.5–3 million range. But we still need to come up with $9 million over the next 10 years to maintain it as 27 holes. And so it doesn't leave that much savings for redirecting. But we could repurpose the 9 holes at Berksdale. I'm going to show you a couple of pictures. Those costs unknown, undefined, but some general ideas that could at least begin that process if we were to pursue that. And then option 4 would be to close Berksdale completely, all 18 holes, and keep Kingswood as an 18-hole. So we go from 6 golf courses to 5, and we would have only one golf course, one 18-hole facility. And I know there have been, we can get into lots of details about exactly which 18 holes that would be. There's some creativity you could do within that, but basically talking about finding a way to have an 18-hole golf course instead of 36. Well, the savings compared to a 36-hole facility is basically cut in half. So over that 10-year period, we're only spending $6.5 million instead of 12 or so. Well, so we save 6.5. We're only spending 5 or so instead of that 11.6 we had before. And we begin to repurpose 18 holes at Berksdale. Don't know exactly how that would work, but I'll show you some potential ideas. Okay, the question that keeps coming up is, what is the right number of golf courses for Bella Vista? How many golf courses do we need? How many golf courses should we have? And where should they be? Mathematically, and Tom showed you the decline in golf rounds that we've had, that we believe that we can stabilize. And we, on the board, I can tell you, we've worked very hard to say, how can we find a way to keep golf growing, keep our rounds up before having to face the inevitable conclusion, if we fail at that we have too many golf courses and golf courses need to be closed. And before going to that dramatic action, you've seen that we've worked very hard to try to get our facilities in shape so that we could start getting Bella Vista attractive again, bringing people in again, bringing in guests, just like Cooper always did, to try to get those guests to realize this is a great place. I want to be a property owner now, and get it going again. That marketing stopped some years ago, and things have kind of declined since then. But clearly, right now, mathematically, we can accommodate our current level of play with 4 golf courses. It's $40,000 rounds a year. That's very reasonable on a golf course. We can do it. But our golfers would not have as much freedom to pick and choose when and where they want to play compared with now. There simply would be more competition for fewer tee times, without a doubt. 4 golf courses would limit our ability to grow golf and promote Bella Vista. And course conditions may deteriorate as a result of excessive play. I mean, you just get more play on fewer golf courses, they're not as good a shape, or you spend more money keeping them in shape. So with a combination of qualitative and quantitative and the analysis we've done, Pat's done a lot of good analysis of our play and the number of golfers we have. We've talked with Philip, we've gone through things to say, both quantitative and qualitative, what would be the right number of golf courses for Bella Vista? And we come up with 5. We basically think 5 courses maintains a good balance between accommodating our membership's needs while not having the expense of underutilized golf courses. And it allows us room to grow rounds. So in the best of all possible worlds, we would be sitting right now with 5 wonderful golf courses that don't flood and meet our needs, and we don't have this problem in front of us. But that's, not what we got, those of us on the board now. I lost my, oh, there it is. Okay. All right, here we are. Okay, a few words about the potential for our Arkmo land. What do we have? Again, don't read anything into anything. I'm making sure we're very clearly, and for some reason this seems to bring up more emotion than any other issue, and I really don't know why, but there always seems to be emotion on both sides on it. But the fact is, we own 366 acres, which is fully owned by the POA, partially paid for by our golfers. That's the way we got it in the first place. All golfers all paid an extra amount for some period of time at the time when golf was so popular and growing, and it was hard to get tee times here. So it would allow construction of a golf course that will not flood. Now, what would that, there's an awful lot of detailed work that would have to be done to think about this, but it would cost $6 to $7 million to construct a new golf course. I think that's a pretty good number. Why do we know that? Because we have a golf course architect on our board, and David has built golf courses all around the country, all around the world. He has detailed spreadsheets. He has people he can talk to. He has each point he can go through and say, this costs this and this and this. So it's going to be pretty close. Like I said, if we look at it at high level, $7 million gets us a golf course with a nice clubhouse and a cart barn and everything that you would need there. And there are things you could do to combine that too. That's very close to Scottsdale. It could be almost a 36-hole facility there, very, very close. Parts of it almost touch. Well, also, we're not in the development business, but the sale of residential lots plus commercial could offset some of the cost. I mean, there could be some commercial there. So just the first very rough estimate, but to give an idea, and this is not timing or anything, but if you use, and if you start, thinking about this, you can get all kinds of creative. What kind of houses would you do, or what kind of commercial, and how would that development work? But if you used as a model the houses that are very popular and going in front of Country Club right now, those relatively close together. So if you took only 80 acres out of the 200, third-acre lots, that'd be 240. But let's say it's only 200 lots, and you net $25,000 per lot after the development costs to go in and then sell it for the houses. That's about $5 million. And I don't know what the detail would be, but clearly there's the potential there, if pursued in the right way, to substantially offset the cost of a golf course. And you have a golf course that doesn't flood and will be open when it floods rather than closed when it floods. So to restate a few commitments, and then we'll go on for some conclusions and and the questions and comments. I'm just going to say this again. The board's continuing vision is to maintain the beauty and enjoyment of our front yard, which is the Little Sugar Creek Valley. The board's continuing mission is to provide attractive recreational amenities, including golf, for the use and enjoyment of our membership. And it's the board's responsibility and obligation to represent all of the owners of our 38,000 properties to find the most economically feasible and practical strategies to accomplish it. Now, I want to show you a few just to have some general pictures. Our valley is spectacularly beautiful, and we all have grown to that's what brought a lot of us here. You go through and you see these fantastic golf courses, and our country club building now that we've done so much to rejuvenate. And this is Bella Vista. This spectacular beauty is Bella Vista. So what would we do if these weren't golf courses to make sure it stays spectacular? Well, we know a couple of things on the trails. We've talked with two over the last year with the Valley Task Force with two landscape architect types firms. And so, this looks something like the Razorback Greenway, which is even bigger, I think. And this looks like what's here, various soft trails and bridges, other potential images with potentially very nice kind of areas that are well manicured, that are beautiful areas through there, picnicking type areas, the waterways that are through there. That could be utilized perhaps even more. Pavilions, nature play for kids and others, picnicking. So there are multiple options for a variety of kinds of pavilions. I'm going to show you some ideas. For example, amphitheater type things and performance, special event type things. A couple of images for amphitheaters that they've shown us that look like this one or like this one that I'm going to show you one actual drawing that we've had as just potential ideas. An area particularly for sculpture, outdoor sculpture. Water could go around that and then still be fine. This is just an architectural drawing of a possibility that would actually connect from there's work being done and analysis of what's going to be going on down here at Lake Bella Vista. This would connect actually with the Razorback Greenway and then go on up and under into this area where, this is where JJ's and Dairy Queen and stuff are here, to this area here. This would be area with an amphitheater type area and gardens, gathering kind of areas potentially. So obviously there's a lot more discussion to go on. There's a detailed discussion that has to go on about board members and management, input from property owners. We have, over the coming weeks, we can hear from all of you. What options do you feel like are the most appropriate? How do we pay for them? The details of what is going to be best for our community, we're not going to make everybody happy. How can we do the best we can for the majority of us in Bella Vista? Certainly further discussion with potential partners if we are going to do some repurposing and reworking, and we think those possibilities there are with some partners. The only thing I would say is we've taken a year after spending $8 million or so over the last 10. We've taken a year to really analyze this situation and to come to where we are today. So we're taking our time to try to make sure we do it right. We want to make sure that we've analyzed it well and we do make the right decisions. The only thing I would say is we have to keep in mind, too, that a non-decision is a decision. That is, every day we take $2,000 out of assessments and we put it in to keep Kingswood and Berksdale open. That's $60,000 a month and $750,000 a year, and that's what we do. We also do that kind of thing for the lakes and recreation and for our restaurants and everything that we've done. That's the benefit of being here. Our $24 pays for a little bit of everything. But we have to make decisions about what's the smartest way to spend that money. Where should we be spending it over the next 10 years? What will really work and what provides the best for the community? So that's as much as we really have today. 4 major options. You can go to the website and look them over. You can think them through. We're open to any ideas. Like I said, I don't know how many hours we've spent studying it, and if I had any hair, I'd pull it out, but I don't have any, there aren't any clear, easy, straightforward answers to this. Feedback, I think Tom said before. I think I'll probably turn it back over to Tom now it doesn't matter. We're going to open it up for any questions and comments. Certainly anybody that wants to come up and ask a question, and the board members are here. We'll try to select the person who can answer it the best, and a few of our other top management. And anything else to add, Tom, before we open it up? Okay, so if you have something you'd like to say today, please step forward and do so. And otherwise, please look it over on your computer at home. Help us think it through. The more brains we have on it, the better, and we will find the best solution for Bella Vista.
Hi there. Thank you for doing this.
Yeah, please just speak in the microphone the best you can. You might have to pull it out and just hold it. That might be the best way. Thanks.
So, if we went back to your presentation, just to paraphrase, golf courses would the limited number of 4 golf courses would limit our opportunity to grow golf in Bella Vista. So we don't have to go into those details, but it would be nice if you provided your what you were basing that statement off of. Like, what types of things are you talking about when you say it limits your growth opportunity, especially in light of golf being down? Number 2, course conditions may deteriorate with only 4. Oh, I'm sorry. Course conditions may deteriorate when you only have 4 golf courses. Again, golf use is down. Our population is changing. So how do you support those statements? And you don't have to tell me right here, but it would be something to put on your...
I can answer that. This last year, when we were down because of Berksdale being 9 holes and then Highlands being down, we had effectively 4 18-hole golf courses and then Berksdale, and the rounds were compacted, and it was not necessarily an enjoyable golfing experience. We had people having to play at times that they didn't necessarily want to play, and our ability to grow rounds was very limited because all the best tee times were already taken up. So that's part of... Actually, it was beneficial in a way in having Highlands closed because it gave us some real hard data as to what our customers needed. What was the second question? Okay. Oh, inherently, the more golfers, the more traffic. I've been at golf courses that did a lot more than 40,000 rounds, and the more rounds you have, the more wear and tear on it. The conditions either go down or the cost to maintain goes up because you have to do a lot more work to it. So that's where those 2 statements came from. we feel that because of the efforts that we're undertaking and have been undertaking, that we can grow golf in Bella Vista, not dramatically, but a reasonable increase. A lot of those efforts were in place just prior to Highlands being closed for renovations, and so some of those efforts, had to be sidetracked for a little bit. But I think you're going to see an uptick in rounds this year because of the efforts that we put into it.
I mean, right now we have with our rounds that we have about 160,000 rounds. It's pretty on 6 golf courses. It's easy. You can get the tee time that you want, where you want, and that sort of thing. If we were down to 4, those 4 golf courses with just our basic play now would be quite full. It would be hard to get tee times. So it limits your ability to say, we're going to try to bring in more guests, try to use this for marketing, try to bringing new people into Bella Vista.
Yeah, on the one slide, I only went 5 years. But I forecasted rounds out 5 years. I could do it 10 years, but it would be fairly consistent. And those I did a lot of research looking at the National Golf Foundation, the USGA, trying to get a semblance of what the experts in the industry are saying with regards to rounds.
Thanks. Yes, sir.
I have 2 things. First of all, some of the slides...
Can you introduce yourself?
Oh, I'm Dan Kinsey. I could not see some of the slides. Now, I was pretty far back, but the slides could have been... the font on some of the slides could have made them visible.
Yeah, and I apologize for that. It's the if I want to include more information, the font has to decrease. If we want to just give service level information, the font has to get smaller. So I try to.
What I saw, the font could have been.
Yeah.
You can go back home to your computer and make it as big as you want.
Sure. Yeah. My second is, I noticed that all of the amenities lose money. Why are we here?
Well, this is, let's make sure you understand again.
What does marketing say that we should have these amenities?
Okay.
Is that to bring people in?
Technically, by definition, none of our amenities lose money. All of our amenities break even by definition because all of them are supported by 2 sources. The fees that come in from golf or whatever that has a fee, and then what makes up the difference is what comes from assessments. So when people first came here, they paid $24 a month in assessment, and there were very small, if any, fees at all. That amount back in those days, the amounts that they had then, would cover pretty much the costs of all those things. And that's why people came to Bella Vista for all of those amenities. Over the years, with no assessment increase, there has been more fees that are required to keep it going. But our intention here is not to make money. Our intention is to provide the best possible amenities that we can for our membership, for our property owners, and those amenities are supported by the base support of the $24 a month you pay, or $16 if it's unimproved, plus the fees that you pay with that. So there was no expectation, and there shouldn't be an expectation, that we're not a for-profit organization. We are an organization that serves our property owners.
I appreciate that we don't want to make money, but I'd also not like to lose money. So my question is, can we get our marketing department to say why?
Well, what we don't want to do, we have an outstanding marketing department, and we don't want to look at them and say, well, it's all their fault. That's for sure. Remember that a POA is halfway between a business and a municipality. In some ways, we act like a business. We want to make sure that we maintain the dollars in a conservative, business-like manner. We want to make sure that we follow industry standards.
I understand
but
what
on the
you're
other
saying,
hand,
but I'd like to hear from marketing.
yeah. But on the other hand, we have to be almost like a municipality. You know, when we put money into Branchwood Walking Trail, which is being used tremendously, so much so that we had to expand the parking lot, there's no ROI on building a walking trail, but there is a community or social ROI, if you want to call it that.
Thank you.
Please keep in mind, too, we have not had an assessment increase in 16 years. And we've tried. We just haven't made it work yet. And we're going to try again. But 16 years.
I started putting it in this perspective for people to think about, actually. I want you to think about when you are, where you were 33 years ago and what things were like 33 years ago. 33 years ago, I was 28. Missy and I had only been married 2 years. I was barely getting started in my career. And since that time, we've had one assessment increase in Bella Vista. That was in 2001. We've had one. So what have we done in that time to keep Bella Vista going? A lot more fees. It certainly used to be almost free to play golf, and now we're pretty, competitive with playing golf other places. Everything has to have some fees in there. We keep them as low as we can. We did do the thing where we incorporated as a city. That took away about between 20 and 25% of our operating costs. But that's still doesn't take away nearly enough, but that certainly kept us alive. Otherwise, everything would have had to be closed down probably at that time. So over time, and I know it's easy when people don't want to have their assessments go up, or they don't want golf to cost more, they don't want anything to cost more. It's easy just to say, well, it would all be fine but if it weren't mismanaged or whatever. But, the facts are the high-level facts. Anybody can just look through those things themselves. So anyway, sorry, go ahead.
I'm Monica, and I live right near Cooper and near Berksdale. And I just wanted to voice my support for repurposing the golf course there. I think that definitely given the presentation, it's a more sustainable way to move forward. And as somebody who moved here for the trails and the trees and the hills, I'd love to see that preserved. And I think it's important for our watershed and the wildlife here and all of that. So just wanted to say that.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm John Lear. Some of you know me. I've lived here since 1993, and Berksdale and Kingsdale have been the most popular courses as far as I'm concerned. One of the points I want to make about the woman who has left about the 4 courses surviving, that doesn't account for what you've done with Scottsdale and part of the money that you've spent. Scottsdale, we have been assigned in our groups almost twice a month this past winter, and almost every time it ended up closed. The most recent was last week. So if you build a golf course in Missouri and you put those kind of greens there, you aren't going to have, you'll have 3 golf courses in the winter, not 5. And I can also tell you that in the summer, there are so many golfers who are upset with the speed of those greens that they won't play those greens. I know this has got nothing to do with the valley, but I think it does. And the thing that I really am concerned about is in the charts about proposals to do something with the land there in the valley. I think part of the cost, if you do something other than golf course, you are still going to have to fix those banks and spend that money. And you can correct me if I'm wrong. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Roger Scholes. I've been here 25 years. I'd like to make one suggestion
that we let the members vote on which option they would like to see enacted.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Kevin Bennock, and first of all, I'd like to appreciate all the work that went into the slideshow. Clearly, you did your homework. There's a lot of, it seemed like a fairly rounded perspective on the good side, on the bad side, for golf, not for golf. You know, I personally am not really a golfer. You know, it's a kind of waste of a good walk for me, but I appreciate what you're doing.
We need to get you in our group. It's $5. We need donators.
Oh, yeah. You'd have me right in your pocket, I'm afraid. The thing that seems really clear to me is there are some places here that just are not good for golf courses. You know, we got a 54,000-acre watershed that is increasingly impervious surface that pours all the water downhill. That being said, I mean, these 100-year floods, these 10-year floods, these are 2- and 3-year floods now, consistently for the past 10 years. I think it's worth considering that golf is a very important part of this community. And making the best of what we can with not 6 courses, but maybe that's 4 courses. And maybe that there are other courses around the area that come into play. The problem what water does, it just cuts down into the ground. And those banks that are along the highway, and I apologize for Kingsdale, Berksdale, correct me if I'm wrong, Kingsdale's the one along 71, is that right?
Both of them are.
Oh, both of them are. So, and every time there's a flood, that's exactly what will happen. You know, the ability to take Kingsdale and Berksdale, I think the option 4, which was to scale down to 9-hole courses, where maybe it's the high 9 holes, and I'm not that familiar with the courses, but to be able to maximize how many holes of golf you can have, but then maximize these slides that we saw at the end of the presentation. That was the amphitheater. I mean, we see what the amp brings to the area. We see what music and recreation and, you know, and basically, you know, when you have a steep flood bank that gets cut and cut and cut every time it rains, that floodplain has to be broadened and has to be widened out so that when we do have those rains, which we know we're going to have every 2 or 3 years, that can get up and it can deposit the proper silt and soil up into the land without cutting in and making damaging problems. Amphitheater, parks. I think the demographic is changing in Bella Vista with all around the area with housing costs the way they are. Bella Vista is a beautiful area in the hills, you know, it's just everybody that I know that moves here, they come and they look in Bella Vista and they want to live in Bella Vista. Young people that want to live in Bella Vista.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I want to make sure we get everybody a chance to speak, and I appreciate the opinion. I think it's important to respond to one thing you said, and maybe David and Jim could add more to this because they're the experts. We looked at all the possibilities of saying, with that 36 holes, Kingswood and Berksdale, is there a way we could configure an 18-hole golf course that is above, that is on high ground?
Right.
And the answer to that is, David?
I looked at it even over a year ago. I don't know how many of you remember the original old Kingsdale golf course, the first 18 holes that was built out of that clubhouse. That's been, what, 40 years ago, Jimmy? 1972 or 3. And you'd have 9 holes coming out. It would about like the 9 holes you play at Berksdale now, and there was a front 9 on Kingswood. Unfortunately, both of those are completely underwater every time it floods. So that doesn't work. The high ground that we have at Kingswood and Berksdale, the only high ground at Berksdale is down by Allen's grocery store.
Supermarket.
That's not even that. So there's only like 8 or 10 acres there. It's above a 100-year floodplain. The only high ground we have on Kingswood are holes 9, 10, 11, and 12. So trying to put those two together just didn't work. So you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
The golf course that is down in the floodplain is going to get the most damage. we're going to have to do something with the stream banks anyway, but I think what we would be looking at is if we decide to repurpose it, as the community would go for that, maybe one of the partners that we could partner with would pay some of that cost. And we've seen what that total cost of stream bank channelization is going to be. And whatever happens down there, whether it's an amphitheater, a park, or walking trails, those are going to have to be restabilized at some point. We'd like to have somebody help us do it.
Sure.
So in summary, no, we can't build an 18-hole course. We still have to rebuild the bridges. We don't have enough land that's above. To find a little bit of high ground here, a little bit over there, the golf course would be all over the place, so it doesn't
so
work.
It sounds like it's not a very viable place for a golf course.
So appreciate it. Thank you. So
You know,
let's
I mean,
let
I hate
the
to
people
say
behind you
that
have a
and
chance.
sort of upset people, but it's just really not the place for a golf course because all you do is pour money into it. And we've seen the numbers. You know, it's a $2.5 million loss every year. I mean, you say break even, but I'm not sure that's 100% accurate. But I do appreciate that because I feel like that was fair to both sides of any argument. I feel like that was good. Thank you very much.
Yep.
Thank you very much. My name is Dave Rogers. I've been here since 1984. I love to play golf in Bella Vista. One of the best deals in the country. If you go play golf, and I've lived in Texas and lived in Florida, lived in Ohio. If you go play golf in any of those places, we got a good thing going here. And I tell you what, I appreciate all the work you guys have done. And I think the community will support for me, what is an obvious decision. You guys are, and lady, I think you've done a great job. I appreciate all your work on it. And my encouragement is, let's just do something. You know, one of the things, the number one complaint I've heard is that a lack of a sense of urgency to fix it. So I think you've laid it out now what the issues are. I think it's just now we just need to go fishing rather than cut bait.
Thanks very much.
I'm Ed Hardesty. Just, you guys mentioned earlier during the presentation that you thought you had about 200 lots capable in the Arkmo property, thought you could make about $25,000 a lot. I looked at the sales of every golf front lot in the last 2 years. It was 9 in Bella Vista that went through the MLS. Average sale price was $18,917 for those lots. Those are good lots on an area that's pretty, there's very few left, so therefore that should be a pretty premium price. So the idea that you're suddenly going to make $25,000 per lot on something that went from, that's a scarcity, to 200 of them, I think that's being pretty, you're being a little bit I don't think it's going to happen. The Arkmo property also has some pretty reasonable impediments for development because half of it's in Missouri. Those houses that you build in Missouri, those kids are going to be going to school in McDonald County. Nothing wrong with McDonald County. But the high school's in Anderson. Water and power. You're going to have two sources. One for the Arkansas property is going to come from probably Carroll. I don't know the name of the company in Missouri, but it's going to have 2 different power systems brought in there. It's going to increase the cost of development. Septic systems are going to be used. That 3rd-acre lot probably isn't going to work for a lot of them, depending on the size of the house you want to build. But this is a brand new subdivision that's going to have to, the Arkansas subdivision is going to have to conform to the new Arkansas septic systems regulations. If you're going to use the 2 golf courses for something else, you're still going to have to maintain that property. You're still going to have to line the banks. But now we won't have any income coming in to offset some of the costs that we're going to have to spend. So I think that we got to be careful what we do here. I'm a golfer. I want 5 golf courses in Bella Vista. But I think that we've got to be really careful about leading people on and saying, we're going to build a new golf course for $7 million, but we're going to get $5 million from lot sales. That ain't going to happen.
Thank you.
I'm Billy Ewens. I've been here 11 years, and I know a couple of you on the board. I think when you're talking to us about 10 years, most of the people in this room would sign a contract for that additional 10 years, wouldn't you? And one of the comments of maybe the possibility of having 4 golf courses, about half these people will probably be going to talk to their realtors, because 5-hour golf rounds is more like work than play. The bank expenses, if they're going to be there and you don't have any income, it really doesn't seem to make a lot of sense. But my solution may be a short term. I may not be able to think 10 years, because I would sign that contract if you'd give it to me. Would be an executive course that goes away from the creek as much as possible, and you would take out the 2 washed out bridges. You wouldn't be replacing those. You would arrange the course around the washed out I-49 underpass. You would move the green short of 18 at Sugar Creek. So those possibilities of future major cost would be eliminated. You wouldn't go across Sugar Creek on the Casey side. You'd eliminate those courses, those 2 holes, and it's not real difficult to replace those. Well, you replace 2 par 5s with par 3 and a par 4, and you end up with 12 of the same holes. None of those are very close to the creek. So if you have 12 of the same holes and your cost would be 3 greens and 4 tee boxes, you would not completely eliminate short term. If we're talking about 100,000 plus, you're talking about spending more than that on working on the greens. But I'd gladly send anybody a picture of that. I've had people say that it has some possibilities.
Is that different from what you already sent us, Billy? Because you sent us a detailed one before.
I didn't show you a diagram. I actually changed one of those holes on the diagram I have.
Okay.
But if it makes sense, but having 6 golf courses, if you're losing that much money, it doesn't look like you want to try to rebuild the golf course as it is. It certainly doesn't make any sense. But you were talking about the assessment increases. I think they would have passed if they wouldn't have tried to add $10 or $15. I've been here 11 years, and I think a $5 would have passed a long time ago. You want to figure out how many dollars that would have been? They were trying to solve too many problems at once.
Okay, appreciate it, Billy. And Billy took the time to actually send that to us with his detailed thoughts about how to put maybe 1 golf course instead of 2 in the end of the valley. So,
You got it.
Compared to other places to live, compared to any place to live, whether it be Nebraska, Iowa, anywhere around the country, when you take the city management and the PAO management, this is a damn good place to live, and it's cheaper than the rest of the world.
that's a good point, and it's absolutely true. Thank you.
My name's Tom Reardon, and first of all, I'd like to compliment the board and the committees on what they've done thus far. In our last meeting, you mentioned that you wanted input from POA members so that we could narrow down and kind of come up with some ideal options, viable options. It looks like we've done that to a certain degree. A comment was made earlier about having an election to vote on whatever we decide to do. It's not a bad thought, but we've elected a board, a POA board, to do that for us. So my basic questions at this point are, let's set a goal can we set a goal, a time goal, and do something so that we can all get back together again, make a decision? And my other question really is, I hope there's some conformity in the board as to where we want to go, looking at these options. I mean, you're talking internally, so I've got to assume to some degree there's some harmony in what would be the most logical option at this point, with all the information, all the studies we've done, and everything else. Okay, so really, what I'm asking is, can we get to it? You know, I want the board to be in harmony with the decision before you worry about the POA members, because, as you said, you know, you're not going to please everybody. Well, there's so many people on the board, you're not going to please everybody with the decisions made there either. But you've got a fiscal responsibility to come up with that harmony, to come up with a solution and an answer, okay? And you're not going to please everybody. But let's set a date. Let's get it together. And if it says this is what we want to do, but we need an assessment increase, I think most of us realize that's a very intelligent situation to look at right now. But as long as you guys are all together, Ruth, you keep them all in line. If you're all together, let's set a time frame, get this thing done.
Yeah, I appreciate the comments. I can tell you what we've done so far. We've been moving very fast, trying to meet one meeting to the next. And we debated as to what we do, or should we do a specific commitment today on these. What we did before is we you know, years worth of work and then very frantic putting it all together in a few weeks of the data that we had on the hydrology. And we committed to having this meeting only a few weeks ago. And so, you know, we've tried to take it one step at a time instead of getting to the solution, at least getting out to the basic options. And we've worked very hard to get to this point, but we really haven't had discussions or gone through and try to take a vote and say which direction or anything. We wanted to get to this point so that all of us on the board and all of you could understand it in broad terms. Now, they know that, you know, I know everybody here sees, I have a personal sense of urgency. I have 2 more months left on the board and I'm done.
Exactly. The board's going to change.
Term is up. And the board's going to change. We're having an election coming up right now. So we'll have some consistency on the board, but we'll have some new members. You know, so we're going to be getting back together now and say, what do we feel obligated to try to do in the 2 months remaining of this board that you see right now, and what makes rational sense. And I would say we don't have a solid answer for that now or even a specific commitment, but I'd be happy for any board member who wants to speak up and talk about where you think we can go from here. But I agree with you, because a non-decision is a decision, and I could see this thing moving on and on and on. Every year you get 3 new board members who may have different ideas, and next thing you know, it's 10 years from now we're having the same discussion.
Well, it's said it's part business and it's part municipality, okay? My business head says you can't run neutral all the time. You've got to get to a point, make a decision, set the time frame for that decision, and stand up and tell us what it is. And
yeah, Tom, I appreciate it. I think I'm the one here who's the most driven to agree with you that we want to get moving in a direction, and I'm speaking only for myself. But in 1974, ironically, I moved to Bella Vista, and I started working in Bella Vista, and I actually, ironically, started working on Kingsdale Golf Course, expanded into Kingswood, BERKSDALE. And I've been intricately involved in Bella Vista for 50 years. And I recognize, as you do, the floods have really caused a dilemma for this board and for this community. Sure. And I'm personally driven to come up with some logical expressions of solutions quickly. I applaud the gentleman who listed the ARCMO constraints, because we don't know what to do with ARCMO, but if that's a direction that we go with real estate and with golf in the future, of course we would look at all the feasibility studies, all of the constraints that are affected by that 2-state property, bringing it into an incorporation. We also have the opportunity for the 35 acres north of Allen's. Hopefully, if it remains golf and that's the decision, that's fine. But there are other uses for that land that may be pertinent as well, and we will have to do financial feasibilities for highest and best use for that specific site as well. So I personally am driven. I've attended 35 of these Valley study meetings, and I'm kind of burned out on it.
Thank you.
But I will point out that I'm still going to be living in Bella Vista, and I'm happy to help if the board asks. So I won't be on the board anymore, have a vote or any input, but I'm happy to help, just as Jim is doing. Yes, sir.
My name is Stan Moore. I've lived here about 12 years, and appreciate all the work you've done. And it seems pretty clear to me that, regards Berksdale, something has to give. I think everybody understands that. I would just ask you to please, because a lot of us live here because we like to play golf, and a lot of us moved here because we wanted to play golf. We like the Bella Vista courses. Please do what you can, if you can, to at least give us 5 courses to play. Because if you just have it down to 4, for most people, that means just 3 because they can't stand the greens at Scottsdale. I'll play Scottsdale, and I'll be all by myself, and I'll be happy.
I'm glad they don't want to play because I love it, so I'll go out there
I like
anytime.
Scottsdale. But what I'm saying is you really will, in a way, limit a lot of folks who can't stand those greens because they're just too fast for them. They'll have 3 left. So we moved here for golf. We live here because we like golf. So please do what you can to leave us with 5 golf courses.
2 comments to that. One is on those greens that I just went down to Hot Springs Village. They converted one of their golf courses to those greens 3 years ago, and there's a dramatic difference between year 1 and year 3. I can tell you, they are fantastic. They're softer. They hold the ball better, so that will happen.
Well,
and they're a huge advantage in the summertime when it's so hot. Now, to get to your point, if we did say, if we went well ahead, and again, this is no decision, we don't know, but if you said we want 5 golf courses, then it comes down to, if that decision were made, the question is, which makes more sense? A golf course where Kingswood is right now, or a golf course in Arkmo? Both have substantial risk, substantial upside and downside, really hard analysis and discussion to figure out which would make the most sense. So, and I wouldn't advocate either one right now until a hell of a lot more work is done. Today, the thought is just to give broad, high-level options to be analyzed, and like you said, get to it fast so that we can make a decision.
Okay, well, I think a lot of us would say get to that decision as quickly as you can, because remember the old story about Jerry Clower with his friend stuck up in the tree with a raccoon in a big fight, and his friend said, just shoot up here. One of us needs some relief. So I think we're all to that point.
All right.
Take a shot, give it your best shot, and we'll go with you.
We appreciate it. Thank you. Any other comments? It sounds like it may be a race to the BV Bar and Grill. Thanks very much for coming out. We appreciate it. I am not buying, no.